Start? Well, good afternoon. I'm Alex Ben-Block from the Hollywood Reporter, and it's my privilege today to spend a few minutes talking with Byron Allen, who I think in the next half hour you're going to find out that Byron is a very unique individual and his company is really unique. If you think you understand what the companies are at NATPE and you think you understand why people come here, that's the old business model. Byron is the new business model. He's got a whole different way of looking at it. And I said to Byron, what do you want to talk about during this session? He said, people come here because they want to learn how to make money. Let's talk about that. So I thought that would be a subject that would interest everybody. So hopefully we'll keep you engaged.
There you go. Huh? See, I know what you want. I know what you need. You're here to make money. You didn't come here to get some free peanuts. I know that.
So, you know, Byron also has the distinction, and this is his 31st consecutive appearance at NATPE or participation at NATPE.
That's right.
So he's also a little bit of living history. But he's created a company called Entertainment Studios that is really very unique because not only has he got 26 shows on the air approximately and more coming, and about 6 HD networks that work in tune with those, and we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. But he very proudly can say he's never canceled a show. And I don't think there's too many executives in the entertainment industry who can say, I've been in business since 1993 and I've never canceled a show. So we're going to hear about that story. But Byron, just tell us very briefly, we're going to show a video in a minute about your company. But before we do, give us the Twitter-length version of how and why you started the company.
You know, I really started it because I'm a creator, and I wanted to be able to creatively express myself. And it's tough out there. You know, I needed a situation. As a stand-up comic, I was used to creating ideas, creating comedy, and going on stage that night and performing in front of a live audience. And I didn't have a filter between me and the audience. And I needed to learn and find a way where I could do the same thing in television, where I could just creatively express myself. So we'll talk more about that, and just that was the driving force. And it's interesting, I had a good buddy of mine, Dick Cook, chairman of the Walt Disney Motion Picture Group for a number of years. He goes, that was simply Walt Disney's story. Not to compare myself to Disney, but he was an animator. And he just kept getting screwed over by distributors. Couldn't get his ideas out there, couldn't get his cartoons out there, couldn't get paid. And he went into the business side of show business. And you quickly learn it's not show business, it's business show. And if you learn the business side, you can do as many shows as you would like. And it was that same thing, that creative, wanting to creatively express yourself, just an unbelievable desire and passion to release that creative energy. Same thing with a good friend of mine who recently passed, Stephen Cannell. You know, Stephen Cannell was a writer, and he was just a phenomenal writer, and all he wanted to do was just creatively express himself, and that's the driving force.
All right, well, let's take a short look at the short video we have here, and we'll tell you a little bit about his company. So if you'd be kind enough to run the video, please.
I haven't seen this.
The unstoppable competitive edge. Six HD networks 24/7, attracting new customers through their passion. Comedy.tv keeps you laughing all day and all night.
It's Comics Unleashed with Byron Allen.
Now they want to charge overweight people double. So I told the dude, my girl's anorexic, I'm paying half.
Kevin Collins.
Do you think cosmetic surgery's gone too far?
Well, let's take a look. Dane Cook.
If I can't have my kid, neither can you.
Boom. Tommy Davidson.
This is a six-pack.
Brad Garrett.
And this is the K.
Comics Unleashed.
Pets.tv, for pet lovers everywhere.
Pets.tv. Pets.tv.
Cars.tv, dedicated to the world of cars and the people who love them. Recipe.tv, bringing you the world's best chefs and delicious cuisine, keeping your taste buds forever entertained.
It smells delicious.
MyDestination.tv takes you away and lets you travel the world from the comfort of your home. ES.tv, giving you a glimpse into the glamorous life of the rich and famous.
You know what I'm saying?
It's sexy. It's incredible.
And that's fresh.
Yeah.
It's all here on the Entertainment Studios HD networks. Talk shows, game shows, sitcoms, movies, reality shows, magazine shows, valuable information, news, experts, exclusives, live events, concerts, and much, much more.
It just makes me so happy.
Opportunities are never lost. Your competitors will always find them. Let the Entertainment Studios HD networks give you the competitive edge.
I've never seen nothing like it.
Are you kidding? I would love you.
I have seen it. That's an excerpt from a sample of our 6 24-hour HD networks. So we have 6 networks that run on Verizon Fios, and it's non-exclusive, but Verizon Fios was the first to pick it up. And Verizon, what happened was, the government deregulated and said the phone company can go into the television business and the cable operators can go into the phone business. And Verizon invested $23 billion to build out fiber to the home so that they can bring you television to your home. And they were going for what's known as the quad play. One stop does it all. You get Verizon and you get long distance, you get internet, you get mobile, and you get television. And they told the world they were going to have 150 HD channels, and we sold them 6 of them. And those are the 6 24-hour HD channels right there.
Well, watching it, I realized Hollywood has a name for people like you, Byron.
What's that?
Multi-hyphenate. He's an executive. He's a producer. He's on-air talent. He's the host. He's the comedian. You need a lot of hyphens to put together this guy's resume.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. My mother thanks you, and my grandmother thanks you.
Well, we came here to talk about what's important, how to make money. And let's talk about your business model. I did a piece in the Hollywood Reporter last week about what interested me was how different, when you come to NATPE, what you're doing is than what everybody else is doing. And what I mean is, most people put on a show.
Yes.
And then that show has to get ratings, and if that show's a hit, they thank God and they go out and they charge higher and higher CPMs.
Right.
What Byron does, and I'm going to let him explain it in a second, but what Byron does is he sells all 26 shows. And what he really sells to the advertiser is eyeballs and an audience. And he says to him, I'll deliver 35 million eyeballs to you in the next 7 days. And so it doesn't matter if Cars TV or ES TV or one of his other shows is the one that you're watching. Cumulatively together, he's able to sell them to Procter & Gamble, to Ford, to the biggest advertisers in the world.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about your business plan and why it works for you and why everybody else doesn't copy that.
You know, it's interesting listening to you, and I go, wow, that sounds interesting. It wasn't a plan. It came out of necessity. You know, it's like they say, the sign of intelligent life is to be able to adapt. You know, I started the company. This is my 31st consecutive NATPE. My first one was in '81. And I thought this is a great place to get to learn the business side. So you're in the right place. And I sat at my dining room table after interviewing about 6 funny friends. I made a 1-hour show, entertainers. This is about 93 or so. And I said, I'm going to make this a weekly 1-hour show. And I called every television station in the country, from sunup to sundown for about a year. And all 1,300 stations or so, commercial TV stations. And I asked them to carry the show for free. And
well, free in the sense of barter.
Barter, you're right. And 14 minutes of commercial time. 7 minutes I would keep, and 7 minutes you, local television station, you keep. I'll sell my 7 to national advertisers. You sell your 7 to local advertisers, local car dealers, banks, and supermarkets, and I'll sell mine to national advertisers. So it took me a year of calling television stations, literally all I did, and actually got about 40 no's from every station in the country, about 40,000 no's. And finally, I was able to get a yes in every market, from Waterloo, Iowa, to Bangor, Maine, to New York. That was my lineup. And I literally wore holes in my dining room table sitting there from 6 in the morning, because I live in LA. So I started calling the television stations really like 5 in the morning, because some of the GMs got in at 8 a.m., 8:30. And I had one of my little sales things where I would call the newsrooms, because the GM stopped taking my phone calls. And so I said, well, these guys aren't taking my calls. I can't give them my pitch. So I started calling the newsroom. GMs always take the phone calls from the newsroom. So, because news is everything. And I say, hey, it's news. And they go, yeah, any news report? I go, oh, I'm sorry, can you transfer me to the GM's office? The guy pick up and I do my pitch, right? So there was a year of that. And finally I got my lineup. And the bad news, nobody wanted to buy my advertising time. And so my home went in and out of foreclosure over about a 4-year period, about 14 times, to get the show, to get advertisers. They just didn't want they just didn't think I was going to get on the air. I realized there was somewhat of a monopoly. There was a cartel. The advertising agencies were very used to doing business with just a few people, and it's still so today. And there were days I didn't eat. There were days that I was calling people from a payphone because I couldn't pay my phone bill. And finally, I turned the corner because I went to all the movie studios and I said, I'm having your movie stars on. I'm showing your clips, your trailers. Will you please support me so I can be there to support you? And you're spending about $200 to $600 million a year promoting movies. Will you just throw me a few nickels so I can pay my phone bill and get my home out of foreclosure?
Well, I love the story, and maybe you'll tell it, of the guy who canceled on you and the lesson you learned from it.
Oh yeah, I had a guy. My mom. She was my contract person. She handled all my contracts.
You call her business affairs.
My business affairs. And so my mom, I would call, I was in my condo. My mom lived across the street in her condo. And she would get the tapes out for me after I'd send tapes, and she would do the one-page contract. And I said, Mom, did you ever get that contract from the CBS affiliate WHP in Wilkes-Barre? And she's like, no. I said, Mom, look, I really, I love you, but I really need you to be more organized because I know this guy sent me the paperwork because we did the deal. And finally, after a week or two, I called the guy up because I said, I'll just have him send it again. My mom obviously misplaced it. And I didn't tell him it was my mom doing the paperwork. I just said, hey, did you ever send me that paperwork? He goes, no, because I changed my mind. I go, what do you mean? We had a deal. He goes, no, there were some sales guys in here from Paramount, and they told me that you were calling me from your dining room table in your underwear and that the show wasn't going to go forward. And I said, yeah, I said, some of that's right. Some of that's true. I said, I am calling you from my dining room table in my underwear. But I said, the show is going to go forward. And he said, and if it goes forward, it won't last long. It'll go off the air immediately. And I said, did they say that? He goes, yeah. He goes, I had a couple of suits in here. And they were in my lobby, and they just told me that. And I said, oh, okay. I said, no, I'm going to go forward, and I'll never take that show off the air. And that was the moment I decided to figure out a way to never cancel the show. So a studio could never question whether I would get it on the air or keep it on the air. And that's one thing the stations never questioned me on 19 years later. And it was because of that moment.
And all of these shows are on the air on your gut.
Oh, no, I got to finish just 1 second. So about 10 years later, I get a sales staff, and we have a conference call every Friday morning for about 2 hours, much to the chagrin of my salespeople. And and Gerald Wrights, who handles the Northeast, she goes, I was in Harrisburg, and the GM said, will you tell your boss I'm sorry? I go, why? He goes, he told me he didn't give you that deal. He didn't live up to that deal. Saturday night, 11:30. He goes, I just got Saturday night, 11:30, 10 years later. I go, I remember that, and that's the reason we don't cancel shows, because we can't have these studios question our integrity, because they will always slam you. I'm sorry, go ahead. What was your question?
I was going to say, we just heard a session in here with Ted Harbert and Jeff Shell of NBC Universal, and a lot of other big people here. And one of the things Jeff Shell was talking about was when he worked at Disney, and that everything was thoroughly researched, and every number, and they looked at every angle, and they did every theory about how things might work out before they made a decision. But you have a little different system. What's your belief? And
I follow my instincts. I follow my instincts. I follow my guts. I think the analysis creates paralysis. And you just have to be a human being first. And my mentor, God bless his soul, Al Massini, he's like a second father to me. He recently passed. I met him when I was 19 years old here in 1981. And that was my first NATPE in New York City. And he was launching a show with the biggest movie star in the world on the pilot, Burt Reynolds. He had an interview with him on the set of Smokey and the Bandit, and he was launching a show called Entertainment Tonight. And that was January of 1981. And my mother and I went to New York and to go see what this convention was about, and he went on the air in September of 91, and he told me, follow your instincts. And I never forgot that. He said, watch television and figure out what's not there and put it there. And that was it. And I just do that. I follow my instincts. I had a guy come to me, a mutual friend. He says, I got a guy who wants to talk to you. And I said, what does he want to talk to me about? He says, it's like internet radio. So he comes in, he sits in my conference room, and he's talking to me for like an hour about internet radio. And after I graciously let him do his pitch, I said, okay, you done? He's like, yeah. I said, look, I'm not interested in internet radio. You and I will split 2 nickels. But I am interested in doing a court show with you. You're a good guy. You're married, couple of kids. You were a prosecutor for 8 years, a Superior Court judge for 7. I'll do a court show with you. And 3 weeks later, we shot it, and we were on the air 9 months later. And I went on the air with 43% coverage and a 0.4 rating, up against Oprah Winfrey's and Sony's Nate Berkus, CBS Television Distribution's Nancy Grace, and Litton's Karen. And we're the only show of that fall 2010 that's coming back for fall of 2012. And I lost a bloody fortune in year 1. And now we're at 83% coverage and a 1.0. This fall we'll be at 95% coverage, and I'm highly confident we'll hit a 1.5. But that was pure instincts. And we just never wavered. And I'm not interested unless there are big studios involved. I like the David and Goliath. I like going up against the biggest studios in the world. I like going up against the biggest media companies in the world. That interests me. That's appealing to me. It's very sexy to me. And I'm the only one in the game that's playing with my personal money. I'm privately held. I don't have any banks. I don't have any investors. It's me. When I started from my dining room table, I couldn't find investors. And when I finally turned the corner, I wasn't going to look for investors. And I had to figure out how to make it work. And after I figured out how to make it work, I decided to just leave it that way. So I play the game with a different level of intensity and a different level of passion. I always kid these guys out here. I say, don't forget you're nothing more than temporary hired help. And, you'll hit the wall, but I'll run through the wall and go stand in the parking lot and wait for the ball to come into my glove. So it's different when you're playing with your own chips.
That's why you're moving on to a new phase, which is very interesting to me because you had the difficult beginnings, but basically you've been able to create a situation where you understand how to make a certain kind of nonfiction show and how to monetize it and how to recycle it now using your HD channels, smart TV, which we can also talk about, other ways onto the internet. But now that you got it all and everything's going great, what do? You decide to move into feature films and scripted situation comedies, which is sort of, like going off Niagara Falls in a barrel and thinking you're going to float.
I got you.
Why?
Why? You know what? The feature films, that's just something I'm just doing as an aside. It's just more of a personal thing. Just certain stories I would like to tell. As a comedian, Sammy Davis Jr. took me to Las Vegas to open for him when I was about 19 years old at Caesar's Palace. I love his story, and I just acquired the rights to make his story into a motion picture because I just think Sammy was so special. That's all. I'm not looking to make a slate of films. There's certain personal stories that I want to tell about certain people who I think are phenomenal, and I don't want them to be forgotten. At one point I acquired the rights to Coretta Scott King, My Life with Martin Luther King Jr. She's a phenomenal person. I want to look at Martin Luther King through the eyes of a woman who was by his side and very much an architect of the civil rights movement herself, and she's an unsung hero.
All right, but why sitcoms?
Sitcoms, because that's a real business. That's a big business. There's a shortage of sitcoms. So we gave a green light to 2 sitcoms. The First Family, which is about an African-American family in the White House. And it's the most famous address on the country and in the world, and we just want to show that residential side. The most powerful man in the world with a wife, 4 kids, and a dog. And Mr. Box Office, the biggest movie star in the world, a la Will Smith, gets into...
Agree. We're running out of time, so I'm jamming here, but to say it's a green light is an understatement. It's more like a laser beam. Because you didn't just commit to, I'll do 13 and see what happens. You committed to 104 episodes of each one.
Yeah, 208. Yeah, so the business model there is we'll do 52 episodes in fall of 2012, 52 episodes fall of 2013. We'll have 104 episodes fall of 2014, and then we'll have a strippable number. Aaron Spelling told me once, you don't have a hit show, kid, until you have 100 episodes. So, and I had him on the 100th episode of Entertainers. And I interviewed him in his office.
By then I expect you'll also have another HD network to play him on, huh?
Well, we have an HD network called Comedy.tv. And because we own all of our content 100%, we have a factory back in LA. We never close. We have a day crew that works from 9A to 7P, and a night crew that works from 7P to 5A. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. My original aspiration was to go with my dad to Ford Motor Company and work the night shift. And my grandfather worked at Great Lakes Steel for 31 years, and my dad worked at Ford for 30-something years. So I have more of a factory blue-collar mentality. So I said, we'll never close. If I'm going to spend a couple of $1 million to build out an infrastructure for editing, I'm going to use it day and night. So I've got kids fresh out of college that just never stop editing. And we own our content 100%. And because we own our content 100%, I was able to launch SmartTV.com, which is the first live television app where you can watch our television live on every device. Television, computers, iPhones, iPads, Android phones, and it's a la carte, and you just simply pay for the networks you want. So if you just want Comedy.tv, you pay $1.99 a month for Comedy.tv, no long-term commitment. Or if you just want Pets.tv, you pay $1.99 for Pets.tv. So that is something that is very important to us, that we own the content 100% worldwide, allowing us to go on all platforms and distribution, because I believe people, they don't watch television, they watch content, and they follow the content, whatever screen it may be, whether it's Netflix, computers, or iPads, or mobile phones, or Android devices. So that's how we have to build it from the ground up and really own it 100% so we can address all of the devices that people are seeking out the content. And basically, that's all our driving force, is just to produce the content, produce it better than the studios, produce it at a more efficient cost than the studios, and pass that efficiency on to our partners, whether it's advertising partners or whether it's platform partners, because we believe there's a great deal of inefficiency in the production and distribution of the content, and we believe that there's a stress in the infrastructure because people are not bearing those costs, and you must bring them down. So we're kind of like the Walmart of television. Every day, I still sign every check, and every time I sign a check, and I sign a lot of them, every time I sign one, I go, and why, and how do we cut? And how do we reduce? I mean, my salespeople will tell you, I'll call them up and ask them about $5 at the Marriott. So we just really bring it down because we have to pass that efficiency on, and we have to produce more of it, and we have to produce it faster. There is a shortage of content in the marketplace, especially sitcoms, because the networks have fallen in love with reality shows. And because of all of the love affair with reality shows, the scripted sitcoms are not getting to the broadcast television stations, and they desperately want that content.
Well, I would argue there's a shortage of good content.
Yes, sir, there is. But by the way, we have access to the very best showrunners, the very best writers, producers, you name it. They're on the beach. They're not working because reality shows are getting made, and we have access to them, and we're just putting them to work.
Byron, I was going to open it up to questions, but I'm going to do everybody here a big favor instead, because we only have about 5 minutes left. And I'm going to ask you to talk to them as if you were one-on-one, and they're saying to you, I have a show, I have an idea, I have a concept, I have energy, I have talent, I have brains. How do I become the next Byron Allen? How do I become a success? Give me your advice.
Well, you're very fortunate. You have something that I didn't have 31 years ago. You have the internet. You have and that's huge. Listen, I say to the industry, we're in a very dangerous place. You know, it's like when Einstein said, you know, when the bees die, so will the earth, so will human life. We need the bees to populate. And I say the same thing about our industry. When the independents die, this industry will die. We're dying. This industry is in a big trouble.
So what's your advice to the independents?
Well, I'm going to share that with them. You know, I don't want you to lose any faith, because this industry needs you more than they know and than they care to admit. It's the independents that built this business and where it is today. It was Roger King that gave us Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, and Oprah, an independent. It was Al Massini, my second father, that gave us Entertainment Tonight. And it was World Vision that gave us Judge Judy and Judge Joe Brown, and on and on and on. The independents. I would say, make your idea, produce your idea. The good news is it's easier and cheaper to make it than it was before. You know, you can now, through Apple, and we use Final Cut Pro HD, you can go and shoot your content in HD, and you can execute your idea, and you can edit your idea, and you need to make, you know, either a sizzle reel or multiple episodes, and you can show folks. And you can put it up on the internet, and if it gets traction there, people don't ignore that. It will rise to the top. And if you only get it on a few stations, that's fine too. Get it on a few stations and get it on a good station and really promote it. Find local advertisers that can support the show, whatever that show may be, just to get a few markets. I mean, don't forget, locally, it was, you know, that's where Oprah came from, and that's where Sally Jesse Raphael came from, and Phil Donahue came from. They don't know. Trust me, these people do not know. You have to be the market leader. You have to show them that there's an audience out there that wants what you have to offer. I'll never forget, you know, I was at the convention here in '84, and, you know, Frank Maggot was walking around with a very expensive report called MDA, Maximum Demographic Appeal. And basically that report was this thick, and it said that women wanted their information from males, white males in particular, and that's who the daytime audience was, and therefore this woman, Oprah Winfrey, wouldn't work. And they're not interested in getting their information, they couldn't even say her name right, from this woman. They don't know. And if you ever think they know, then I'm telling you they're wrong. I've witnessed it. You know, and behind every successful show is passion. And if you're here, I already know you're passionate about it, and I'd say produce it and get it out there, and it will start to get, you know, traction. I mean, you're starting to see internet stars. They're performing, they're singing. I mean, Justin Bieber's our first, you know, internet superstar. He got it out there. The videos got out there. If you have a unique personality, get it out there. If you have a unique point of view, get it out there, and just don't lose faith in it. I mean, look, our shows are not that unique. The American Athlete, that's Sports Illustrated. Beautiful Homes and Great Estates, that's Architectural Digest. My mentor, Al Massini, took the radio shows that he listened to as a kid and made them TV shows. Star Search for him was Ted Mack's Amateur Hour. Solid Gold was Hit Parade. I took the magazine stand and I converted them into television shows. And I knew that some of these magazines sat there for 50 to 100 years, and they can sit on television for 50 to 100 years. And what you alluded to earlier is, I'm not in the television hit business. Most of my friends here are trying to get hits, and they fail 9.9 out of 10 times. I'm in the television real estate business. Once I get a television time period, I simply aggregate all of my time periods, and when I sell my 30-second spot to an advertiser, it runs in my network of 28 television shows that I've managed to put on over the last 19 years, aggregating thousands of time periods and reaching 35 to 45 million people per week. So we've never canceled a show, because if one show doesn't work, we'll plug in another. And we're in the television real estate model. No one's ever done that before, and I did that because after calling advertisers, they would say to me, they would hang up on me, and they'd say, I'm not interested in buying your show until you have a 2 rating. And I said, well, how do I get a 2 rating? At that point, I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll just sell them the 4 shows I have on the air together, and that's a 3 rating. And I called the guy back 3 minutes later, and I said, you said you didn't want to buy my show until I had a 2 rating. I go, well, I have a 3 now. He goes, you just called me and you had a 0.4. So I got 4 shows, and if you had this one and that one and this one and that one, that's a 3. Will you buy my spots? He laughed and he bought me. And so, and I kept selling them. And that was it. And that came out of necessity, just listening to them, and whatever hurdle they put in front of me, leap it, jump it, climb it, go over it. What I do is easy. What my grandfather did was hard. Great Lake Steel, 31 years, maybe his best year was $5,000 a year. My dad, $8,000 a year. What they did was hard. What I do, this is easy.
It would be easy to listen to you all day, and I would enjoy it, and as we all would, but unfortunately we're out of time. So I'm going to ask all of you to join me in a big round of applause for Byron Allen.
Thank you. And thank you for the wonderful article, and my mother thanks you. The best writer in the business, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks for being here. Have a good nappy.
Thank you.